Okay, let's dive right into this. If you have ever found yourself stuck in a maddening loop of bad habits, just completely baffled as to why you can't break free, despite your absolute best intentions, well, you are in exactly the right place today. Welcome to The Explainer. We are going to finally crack the code on why we repeatedly self-sabotage, and a whole lot more importantly, we're going to figure out how to stop. Today is all about unmasking those hidden, deeply rooted motivations that are secretly driving our most frustrating behaviors.
I mean, it's kind of the ultimate human frustration, isn't it? Why do we keep repeating things that make us absolutely miserable? We know we shouldn't eat the junk food. We know we shouldn't doom scroll for 3 straight hours instead of actually sleeping. And we definitely know we should start that huge project earlier than the night before it's due. Yet our willpower just literally evaporates right when we need it the most. It feels like this giant psychological mystery, right? Like a flaw in our wiring. But today, we're going to solve it. We're pulling back the curtain on what's really happening inside our minds.
You see, we usually tell ourselves this really specific, punishing story. We say, I'm just lazy, or I completely lack discipline, or I'm just broken. We view these daily struggles as these profound moral failings, thinking if we just tried a little harder, we'd be totally fine. But we actually need to flip the script entirely here. Because the reality? Your mind is actively protecting you. Those destructive habits aren't you being weak. Actually, scratch that. They aren't flaws at all. They are deeply misguided, totally unconscious survival tactics that your brain whipped up to keep you emotionally safe. Now, to understand why our brains are protecting us in such bizarrely destructive ways, we have to look at a true paradigm shift.
Which brings us to the core of all this, the hard rule, and finding the payoff.
For everything you do, there's a payoff. And for everything you do not do, there's a payoff. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. It is a universal, undeniable, hard rule of human psychology. Every single choice you make, and honestly, every single choice you actively avoid making, provides you with something in return. Even the behaviors you genuinely hate the most, the ones that wreck your productivity or strain your relationships, they're giving you something you desperately crave on an unconscious level.
So, what does this actually mean for us on a Tuesday afternoon? Well, a payoff is simply the hidden, often completely unconscious benefit or reward that you gain. It could come from taking an action or, just as likely, avoiding an action altogether. The absolute secret to changing your life isn't just summoning more discipline out of thin air. It's playing psychological detective. It's about finding that secret reward your negative behavior is quietly handing you. Let's look at exactly what this looks like in the real world.
Let's start with a classic. Case Study 1. Deconstructing procrastination. Okay, let's put chronic procrastination under the microscope. We universally accept this as just a classic symptom of laziness. But guess what? It is not. It's actually an unconscious avoidance tactic. Why do we do it? Simply to temporarily escape fear, anxiety, or just acute discomfort. Maybe you're terrified of failing. Maybe the task is just massively overwhelming. Or maybe, weirdly, you fear succeeding and having to deal with all the new expectations that come with it. When you procrastinate, your unconscious mind literally registers that decision as a massive win because it achieved its number one goal, granting you immediate, temporary emotional relief.
It's like a trap, and it always starts with a trigger, fear of failure, maybe some intense anxiety. So your behavior naturally leans toward avoidance. You put the task off. And boom, right there is the hidden reward, the psychological payoff. You get that sweet temporary escape from the fear. Ah, relief. The pressure is totally off for tonight. But the result is inevitable, right? The fear always returns, except now it's compounded by crushing guilt and even less time to get the job done. You get trapped in this loop simply because your brain relentlessly prioritizes that short-term payoff of relief over your actual long-term goal. So procrastination is definitely a quiet form of self-sabotage. But what about the loud ones?
That leads us right into Case Study 2, Unmasking Anger.
On the surface, having an explosive temper, yelling, feeling totally self-righteous, it makes you, and honestly everyone around you, absolutely miserable. It shatters trust, it ruins connection. But the hidden payoff? Oh, it acts exactly like a cheap drug. It hands you this massive adrenaline rush, making you feel instantly powerful. And more importantly, it powerfully masks deep, painful feelings of vulnerability, shame, or fear. Let's be real, it is so much easier for our fragile egos to feel big, loud, and angry than to sit quietly with feeling hurt and exposed. The payoff is a totally false but incredibly alluring sense of armor.
And the crazy thing is, this brilliant deceptive mechanism applies to almost everything we do. Think about ruminating over past mistakes. The payoff there? It's comfort in familiar misery. It's predictable, so it feels safer than actually risking a real change. What about gossiping or constantly complaining? The payoff is instant social bonding and a cheap feeling of superiority.
or aggressively defending your worldview against brand new, contradictory evidence. The payoff there is fiercely protecting your ego and maintaining your deeply held sense of security. These unconscious motivations are literally everywhere, quietly running the show. So why exactly are our minds deliberately tricking us into these loops?
Let's talk about the force behind all this, the unconscious guardian.
I want you to meet the 800-pound gorilla. That is your unconscious mind. Imagine you're riding on its massive shoulders. You, the conscious mind, want to steer left toward your long-term goals. You want health, productivity, emotional maturity. But the gorilla? The gorilla wants to go right toward immediate comfort, familiar habits, and total emotional safety from perceived threats. And, spoiler alert, guess who usually wins the wrestling match? The gorilla forcefully prioritizes feeling safe right now over any theoretical far-off future success you might be dreaming about.
The gorilla almost always wins because, well, it's highly energy efficient. It runs on automatic habits that require zero conscious brain power. It's also locked into these deeply established, heavily trafficked neural pathways in your brain. It is the ultimate path of least resistance. But you know what the real kicker is? It actually has genuinely good intentions. Your unconscious acts entirely to keep you safe from perceived emotional threats, all based on your past painful experiences. And understanding this is a total game changer because it completely removes the shame. You aren't broken. Your gorilla is just, well, a little too overprotective. So, how do we finally tame it?
This brings us to the solution, breaking the cycle through self-inventory. Look, we clearly can't use brute force or sheer willpower against an 800-pound gorilla. The most effective tool we have is what the source material calls Step 10, Continue My Inventory. Now, this isn't some quick one-time fix or a weekend retreat. It is an ongoing daily practice of literally hitting the pause button. During this self-inventory, you're actively monitoring your actions, your thoughts, and your emotions. By constantly remembering the hard rule that everything you do has a psychological payoff, you can start exposing those hidden motives. And here is the magic. Once you drag that secret reward out of the unconscious dark and into the conscious light, it immediately loses its power to control you.
This daily self-inventory translates into a really simple, actionable 3-step technique. We call it the radar method. Number 1, reflect. When you feel that totally familiar urge to self-sabotage, just stop, pause, examine the underlying emotion. Is it anxiety, frustration, total boredom? And you have to do this entirely without judging yourself. Number 2, describe. Put those newly discovered feelings into specific, neutral words. Tell yourself, I'm avoiding this task right now because I feel completely overwhelmed. Instead of just saying, ugh, I'm so lazy. Naming it detaches you from it. And finally, number 3, respond. Now that you clearly see the hidden payoff, you can take a thoughtful action. One that actually aligns with your true, long-term values rather than just blindly reacting to your momentary fears.
And that brings us to the end of this explainer, but honestly, it's just the beginning of your real work. I want to leave you with a question. What hidden payoff is holding you back today? What specific comfort is your inner gorilla clinging to right now at the total expense of your actual goals? Take a moment today, do your self-inventory, find that hidden reward, and take your power back. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you next time.